All right, we were back here. Just going to go back and start off again. Here we are. We are game 1116. That's game programming 3 in the fall 2025 semester, and it's week 10, part 3? 4? Woohoo! 4 of our broadcast and recording together. I'll be okay. And where we were was we were creating this part right here. We made the volume, and we made our C++ class, and I was in the middle of doing this kind of stuff when I got an important call, which I apologize for. But what I want to do here is, like what I said, is just get rid of the boilerplate code, the comments. I think they're kind of useless for me. I'm not sure if they do anything for you. So I just take these and I amalgamate the public sections because it's easier for me to maintain. That's why I do it. Now you may like those extras. I don't. So that's just me. It's not urgent. Nothing would break if you left them. But I just find that it's just a little bit neater. And I'm going to do the same thing with the comments. And the comments, I mean, unless I put the comments in, I don't usually leave them in because they really don't do anything for me. I know what those things do. I've looked it up. If there's ways of shutting it down, there is to shut down the comments. There's a way, but you have to monkey with your actual engine. So the answer is no. So well, you could do it if you were a studio and you didn't want the comments to come up. You could do that. You could just say like, yeah, I don't want the comments. And then none of those comments would come up ever. It'd save you some time. All right, but let's go back to here. We've got the enemy class. And we've done this part. And now for the enemy file, before we do it, it's asking us for some forward declarations because we're going to do some of this. Let's put that in. Let's put that in the right place. And usually when I see forward declarations like this, a main character, AI controller, and this is the one that really worries me, the AI controller, because again, if your AI module is not working, then this will not work, right? So that's the one that I would be worried about. The other thing is you want to add a function here in the public section. So that's in here, public, which, kind of is player detected. Player detected is a blueprint callable. Now I know there's a problem here, I tell you right now. And you know why? Because when I see this and I don't see any kind of IntelliSense, that means it needs to be reloaded. So I'm going to save all. And just going to go back into Unreal Engine. There is a way to do this. It's non-destructive. If you go to refresh Visual Studio project here in Unreal Engine while it's still open. By the way, I don't care about the green. I'm going to turn the P off here and file save all. But you can go to Tools and refresh Visual Studio project, which will ask you to reload. Sometimes that will bring back IntelliSense. Sometimes it will not. At least at the school computer. My home computer will do everything perfectly, as always. But, yeah, so you see it didn't do anything, right? So, whatever. So here's my stuff here, and we're going to fly blind a bit. Because this is what happens, so save all. The other thing you could try, if you notice these are okay, but these two aren't, we need to rebuild. And like I said, for whatever reason right now, I can't rebuild, and that's fine. You could also do a Control-Alt F11. So if I did Control-Alt F11, that actually does the patch. Control-Alt F11 does, kind of patch things up. So if anything happens, and it says failed to link patch, you can see that there might be some issue, right? The reason why this failed to link patch, because you're trying to do something here for declaring stuff, but then you're not doing anything with this part. The function hasn't been declared yet. So again, the wisdom would be, and this is me, I'd probably save all, kind of thing, close off Visual Studio, I hate to do this, and go back to Tools and open Visual Studio again. Sometimes that reloads the entire thing, and then gives me back my tooling. I need my tooling, because if I don't have my tooling, then bad things happen. I don't have any kind of IntelliSense, and that would be a bad thing. That's a better sign. That makes me feel better. Okay. So now that I have this, what I want is I want to continue with this stuff. So back to here, got this in. I'm adding some properties to the protected section here. These are all protected section. I'm going to talk about this in a second. Okay, so I'm not going to just do it, copy paste, and keep going. Enemy state. So it looks like enemy state is missing, right? And the reason why it's undefined is Well, we don't have the enemy state, so I could include it here. I could just kind of go in here and just could include enemy state. It actually may prompt you to do that. It might say something like, hey, you know, you may want to include enemy state in here, and I'm okay with that. The only thing is, do not include it underneath your generated. That's bad. Don't do it here, right? It has to be done, this enemy state, because remember, it'll fail. It has to be done before the generated, all right? So maybe under here would be good, okay? Like up here. Please make that change, because Visual Studio doesn't know about that, okay? So enemy state's there. Let's see, is there any other things we need to do? Sensing radius, we have, it's a USER component, and that's why we have this USER component forward declared, right? And so far, so good with these, all right? Now, we also have an AI controller here, where we were calling it enemy controller, and we've forward declared the AI controller here. So that's what we've done. We've also forward declared a main character here. So we've done all those things there, all right? Very, very good. So that's all the stuff that we've done so far. Next, in the protected section, continue here, we'll add a couple more. There we go. And you can see here we have a couple of things we're going to use to make a timer happen, a timer handle, and we have a patrol target with of type A actor. We don't have a patrol, we haven't done the patrol point yet, but we will. And it'll be this time, last time we did it in blueprints, and this time we'll do it in C++, the patrol point, okay? Just to show you the difference. So save that. And then the last two are in the protection section will be this. So these are the last two. Now these are, I mean, again, sometimes students come across to me and they're like, well, you know, how would you ever know to put in the on-sensing radius overlap? How would you know how to do this? Because this is your own function comp. That's what they would say. So how would you know that these are all things you need, right? Well, remember, a lot of this stuff you can find online. The documentation is there for it. And the other thing is the on-sensing radius overlap, right? There is a on-component begin overlap that has the exact same thing. So if I actually type that in, if I said virtual void, watch, virtual void, and then I said on-component begin overlap, take a look. It actually gives you begin overlap. It gives you a lot of times the stuff that you need. Not in IntelliSense I'm talking about, but if I hover over and if I go to, like, let's say F12, you know, kind of thing for the virtual override. If I go virtual override, right? Because that's what I would want to do. I'd want to override this thing, and I want to know what that is, you know, kind of thing. Then a lot of times what happens is with F12, it'll take you there. So this is the on component begin overlap, right? And take a look. Look at that. It kind of tells you a lot of stuff that's in here, right, by using F12, right? So that, like, you can go actually skim down and look through this stuff, and you'll see that it has a lot of information. This is from the engine itself, the primitive component, right? But this is what it is. So that's how you would find it. And on component begin overlap has all of these things, and so does on component end overlap. It's a little different, but these are two, the on sensing radius overlap and on action radius overlap. So there's two parts. We're going to have an action radius and a sensing radius. The action radius for the enemy is going to be something that we're going to be using. Take a look here. So we have two radii, right? A sensing radius and an action radius. The sensing radius is like, do I detect the player for now? The other one is the action radius. If I'm close enough to do an attack, is he within my range? My, you know, so I can, you know, I can do an attack on the player. That's what these two things are. Okay, and then in the private section, we're going to add in a private section here. So there's also more stuff to do. We're going to add in some helper functions. These are all helper functions for the enemy class. All right, so there we are, helper functions. All of these need to be made into, you know, we need to kind of declare these as, or define them. These are all functions. So again, if I had resharper, then I can just go to the enemy class and then just go do something like, you know, add all of my declarations, you know, kind of thing. Here I don't have that. So one thing I could do is I could split screen. I recommend this too. Use split screening. And then this way it won't bounce back and forth, right? And then here's my enemy CPP, and I can just go here, and I can just go one at a time and put them in. So here's player detected. I can just put the screwdriver in and create it, and then it's there. And then I'm down here to the next one. And I kind of scroll down to the other ones where they're here. Here's another, U function, then put it in, right? And there's another one, and put it in. And here's more, put these in. So all I'm doing it is just systematically putting all the functions in. I could also type it in myself if I really was interested in doing that. I am not interested in doing that. That's a waste of time, right? Forgive me if I say that I'm not interested. It's not because I'm a lazy guy. It's just I think it's a waste of time. I really do, right? So here it is, because all you're doing is typing this void a enemy and then the delimiter : and then followed by whatever, right? Or if it's not void, whatever the return type is. So these are all the functions I've put in by clicking that in. At the top, we need some includes, and I've given them to you right here. Let's add those includes in there. Now, this is the trick, my friends. Okay, so please pay attention to AI controller. If, for whatever reason, I get an underline here with AI controller, you have not added in the module properly. Like I can see one person in front of me who doesn't have who has that problem. So you have to add in the module. If you don't add the module in, you'll see an underline here, and it will never work. Okay? You need to rebuild. Sorry. There is no other way to do it. You have to rebuild the hard way. So make sure you close down the editor and blah, 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 and do all that stuff. All right, so I've got this. I'm pretty good. Sensing radius, I'm going to put inside of the constructor function, all this. I'm going to keep going just to put all my stuff in first before I have to rebuild, because I have to rebuild too, right? And I'm also going to put in the action radius. Now there's a lot here to take in. I'm going to kind of talk about that in a second, but first I'm going to put it all together and then talk about it, right? So let me talk about it now. So here it is. So sensing radius, remember we want our enemy to have two radii. The sensing radius, and we use create default subobject of uSphere component. We want to name it sensing radius in the engine, so that's why we put this text in there. We don't have to do this. Otherwise it'd be called sphere component, but we want to put this in here. The E collision channel is world dynamic. We can specify that, and then we're going to query only, no physics. That's what we're using here for collision enabled. We're going to respond to all channels initially as ignore, and then what we're going to do is we're going to respond to the pawn and the world dynamic channel as overlap. So those are the two overlap channels we're going to care about, right? We're going to set the generate overlap events to true. We're going to set the sphere radius to 800, and we're going to set up the attachment to the root component. So why this, right? Because why don't I just do this in blueprints? And the question I had to you before was, hey, we have something in the on the blueprint side. We can go to C++. But sometimes we want to have something in the C++ side. We want to take the blueprints because we want our artists to help us out. And the more we put in C++, the less control the artists have because they can't do anything. You know what I'm saying? So here, though, we're going to access the sensing radius and action radius from C++. That's why we need to define it. The other one is we're going to orient the rotation to movement. That's going to be true. We're also going to the character movement component, the walk speed is going to be 125 by default. So that's what that's going to be. So that's going to help us out with our blend space settings. Next, now that I have that, I want to initialize enemy. I don't have that yet, but I'm going to kind of do that. And that's in the begin play. And I'm also going to check patrol target. These are kind of two enemy actions that we're going to work on later on. Not today, but next week when we start doing enemy attack. Okay. We're also going to define the initialize enemy method. So I'm going to go down there and talk about what that is. So we're going to say here, well, enemy controller, we're going to set the enemy controller as the, we're going to try and cast it, our regular controller, our pawn controller, as an AI controller and save a reference to it in enemy controller, which is a property we defined in .h. Sensing radius and action radius, here's where we bind dynamically to the on component begin overlap and the on component begin overlap for both the sensing radius and the action radius. All right, that's what we're doing there. Check patrol target. This is not much gonna happen here, but check patrol target, we're just gonna go in there next, and it's gonna say, hey, if I have a patrol target for the enemy, then I want to get the world, this is new, guys, I need you to take a look here for a second. Get world timer manager. So world timer manager is how we set up a timer in C++. And what we're going to do here is we're going to set the timer. We're going to use the patrol timer, which is a handle we defined in the .h. And it also needs, if you notice, an enemy object, which is us. That's us, right? And this timer also needs, if you notice, some kind of function that tells us when we stop or what we're looking for, and we're looking for the patrol timer finished function, right, when it's done. The interval is 2, right, which means 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds, that's what's going to happen, then the interval is going to trigger. That's what's going to happen there, okay? So that's the rate. And it tells you all this stuff here, the amount of time in seconds between set and firing. That's what it has right here. It tells you all the parameters, the parameter information right here. By the way, if you want to look at this function, please do F12. F12 will take you to this function and it'll show you all of this stuff. It's a template class, but notice up here, this is all the stuff we just saw. Take a look here. This is the way we can document our own code the same way. Notice it uses Java docs. That's what this is. This is like an old school Java doc situation where we have @param. @param are the parameters that are defined, and the first 2 lines here are descriptions of what my thing does, my function. Okay, that's what this does. So @param specifies parameter usages and stuff like that. Okay, so if I go back to where I was, if I hover over, look, it just tells me parameters. There's all the parameters here. Okay, so pretty good. All right, so that is check patrol timer, and then patrol timer finish is move to target. Let's take a look at that. That's patrol timer. When I'm finished with the patrol timer, it calls the move to target function. The move to target function takes in an actor target, right? So whatever the target is that I'm looking at, right? And that's the patrol target, whatever the enemy is looking at. If the enemy controller is equal to null pointer, or somehow there's no target, then I don't want to move to target. I want to avoid that, and we can do that by this if statement. This is our guard for this function. Then we have, I'm creating a move request. This is a configuration I'm doing. So I have a move request configuration, and in the move request configuration, I'm making it called move request, right? I'm adding the goal actor to the target, whatever the target is, and the acceptance radius to the acceptance radius we chose. I think it's 25 units, right? And then enemy controller, I use move to. Move to is built in to the AI controller. Remember, we used move to before in the first half of semester to move our drones to our character. Same thing. It's the move to function, right? But here we do it here in C++. And then we pass in the configured move request. That's how we do it. Okay, so pretty straightforward. All right, next, clear patrol timer. We're going to grab all this. What happens when we want to clear patrol timer? And we're going to say, let's get the world timer manager, and we're going to clear the timer with this handle. So first we save the handle. When we create the timer here, right? So go back to initialize. So here's the initialized enemy. When we make the timer, set timer, here it is, we set up the patrol timer as the handle. So we can kind of specify the handle reference right here. And then when we clear timer, we use that same handle, that same basically pointer to which timer we want to stop. Okay, that's what that is. And finally, the player detected. What happens when we're detected from the enemy? The player detected function is here. Player detected, so we're going to do this. If the player is detected, then we're going to clear the patrol timer. So we're not going to patrol to the patrol point anymore. We're going to stop patrolling, right? We're going to say the patrol target is now the character that we've intersected with. That's what that is. And then get character movement, change us from walk speed to run speed. when we trigger our ground speed to 300, our animation is going to change to running for our enemy. That's what's going to happen, right? And then we're going to change the enemy state to chasing, right? Then we're going to call move to target, and the new target is main character. So that's what the player detected does for us. Next, on sensing radius overlap. So when I'm sensing the player, that's what this does. Okay, we're going to change this in a second, but this is when I'm sensing the player. So on sensing radius overlap, then what I'm going to say is this: if the other actor exists and the other actor is not equal to this, I'm not intersecting with myself, I'm not overlapping with any of my own components, the enemy. If the main character is the one I'm overlapping with, then I'm going to say player detected. I'm going to UE log player detected. And if my main character, again, if I can cast my main character again, I'm doing this double casting thing, which is okay, then I'm going to say the player detected is true. Okay, so I really don't have to do both of these. I could just do player detected at this point because I've already made sure that the character exists. Okay, but I'm just doing it twice. I find that that's more efficient. Next, there's a part that I can't do in red. This part in red is not available to us right now because we don't have a patrol point yet, but we're going to come back to this. So for now, all we need to do is grab everything, but we're going to erase the else if. So copy paste, and that's going to be in here, but it's going to give us a bit of an error because patrol point doesn't exist. We can just get rid of this else if right now. We can even actually comment it out if we want. So we'll comment it out. We're going to come back to this else if later. All right, save. So what happens here? On action radius overlap, that means the character, our player, is close enough to the enemy to do something, right? I need to attack the enemy, attack the player, I'm going to dodge out of the way or something, right? So first I check to see if it's not me that I'm colliding with, it's the player. That's what these two lines are. Then I'm going to say, hey, we're going to attack the player now. And I'm going to check if the game engine exists, and if it does, I'm going to say, okay, game engine, add an on-screen debug message that's attack action. So this is basically just going to do the print action that we do. These two lines is like me doing print. That's what this is what it does. Okay? I'm going to clear the patrol timer, and enemy state is now attacking. We don't do anything else yet. Next week, we'll add an attack state, an attack action. What's going to happen? So we're going to add some animations, and that attack action is going to trigger a montage for the enemy where the enemy attacks the player. Okay, that's what's going to happen next week. But for this week, we're just going to say, we're in attack range, we're attacking. You know. All right, that's this part. And now, right, this part says for you to do the patrol point class. Okay? So what I'm going to do first to test what I have right now, because I don't have a patrol point class right now, is I'm going to save everything, and I'm going to close down the editor, file, save all, right? Close down the editor, and I'm going to rebuild. Now, it'd be nice if I can just do Control F5, but I know this is going to fail, right? I know this is going to fail. So instead of doing Control F5, what do I need to do? Full rebuild, my friends, on my little computer over here, right? So even though it says all these actions and blah, 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 I'd be very surprised and elated for no reason whatsoever, right? It works it. Yeah, no reason whatsoever. Which is good. So what I want to do is I want to retarget my enemy. So here's my enemy class, and I also have my enemy blueprint. Take a look at my enemy blueprint here, right? So what I want to do is when I bring up my enemy blueprint, I want to, let me just go back to my editor here, editor preferences, and change this to main window. I want to retarget my blueprint from character to enemy. So let's do that. I want to go to class settings, then I'm going to change this to enemy. There it is. There's my enemy class, right? And what I need to do at this point is compile and save. So here's what I added, all right, just to be clear. Once I've done that, you can see that if I kind of, move this down a little bit. There we go. Oops. I added two things. I should have an action radius now. Take a look here. Action radius. And I should have a sensing radius. Both of those two things have been added right into the components for my enemy. Okay. Now, right now, my enemy does not have. Here's what it looks like. That's how big the action radius is, and everything else is, right? He doesn't do anything right now because I don't have any patrol points. But here's what you can do with this to test it out. Let's choose my enemy, and when I choose my enemy, underneath that you're going to see a target. Look at the target here, right? So he can kind of look for anything. Here's the enemy state is patrolling, and this is my patrol target. My patrol target could be any actor I want. So let's make the patrol target as an example. I want to make him go towards, first of all, let's move him over there just to test that. And I want to make him move towards the sword. Okay, the patrol target is going to go to the sword. That's what I want to make him do, right? Watch. So I can say patrol target for now is the sword. So if I can actually type, kind of pick it, it's probably too far away, but there it is. The patrol target is the sword. Let's see if it works. So if I press play, then what we should see is the enemy moving towards the sword. Look at that. He moves towards the sword. And so we know it's already working, right? As the enemy moving towards the sword. When the enemy gets to the sword, he's going to stop because he's going to get to his acceptance radius, right? And he's not going to have a patrol target anymore, right? There we go. Watch. He's going to get to his sword and stop, right? And then my dude, if I get close enough, right, he's going to detect me, and it's going to say, oh, look at that. Player detected, and there's my attack action, and he's ready to attack me. That's what you guys should have right now. Okay, for you to do in class right now is to make the patrol target class yourself, right? I know, right? With all these errors happening right now. Make the patrol target class yourself. Please follow the next part of the PowerPoint, which is for you to do. Let's go over this a little bit, okay? It's not that many slides. That's why I said it's not a big one today, all right? You're going to add in a C++ class of type actor called patrol point, okay? And there's a couple things that you're going to add in. Like we said, please make sure if there's things in here that Visual Studio asks you for, like it says, I don't know about this, you include any includes that you need to do or any kind of for declarations, okay? Then you add in these two components, all right? And what I recommend you do is two things. We have not added starter content to this package, right? Our starter content right now is 0, right? There is no patrol point mesh that we can use that is the shape of a tri-pyramid. It's just for us. We can choose anything you want. If you want to choose a other representation, you want to make your own whatever to test things out, you can. Or you can also add in the starter content yourself. Do you guys know how to do that, the starter content? The way you add starter content is you go to here, you go to add, and you go to import game blueprints enemy, this one. Oops, let me do that again. Add feature or content pack, and then under content, you can pick up starter content and click add to project. Now, beware, if you do this, you're going to get 800 more megabytes of stuff. So another way to do this, instead of doing this at all, is you can go into, instead of selection mode, you can go into modeling mode. Take a look, modeling mode. You guys done modeling mode at all? Modeling mode allows you to create cones and a bunch of other stuff in here. So you can, this is create mode. So I can go in here and create anything I want to try things out, like for example a cone or a cylinder or whatever, without having to install everything. I can install one thing, right, as an example. So there's another way of doing it like this if you want to do that. Or if you don't want to do that, you're nervous about that, you can always go into my assets that I've given you, and if you go into treasure, and if you go into meshes, you can see that I've given you a bunch of meshes that you might use that might be representative of something that you want as a patrol point. Like for example, this statue, which is not bad, right? Or this statue. Think about these as just patrol points, something that you want to use, okay? The other way to do it, and I want to kind of talk about these things because there's many ways to do the same thing, and I want to, because you're gonna come to this point and you're gonna be like, hey, I've got nothing to add there as a mesh, right? So one thing that we can do in Engine on the right, see where it says settings, right? On the right, you can also show engine content. Take a look, guys, please. This is important because you're going to need to do this for your own game one day. Look, look, look. Show engine content. If I show engine content, on the left, there's also an engine folder that's hidden, all right, that you can go to. And if you go into content, there is quite a bit of engine content already built in, like basic shapes. Okay? So you could actually take some of these basic shapes already, duplicate them, because they're just a static mesh, right? And use one of these as your, kind of content. Instead of recreating your, reinventing the wheel, it's right here for you, kind of thing. And remember, it's just a representation for you when you're mapping out patrol points. You're going to make those invisible later on in the game. You're not going to see them. They're just for us for troubleshooting our AI, right? So you can use whatever you want, okay? Again, I recommend turning it off afterwards because you don't want to mess with engine content. You just want to copy. But there's a lot of stuff you can look at to see engine content when you're in the editor. It's a whole other folder that's been hidden from you, okay? So that is here. So you're going to do the patrol point. And then afterwards, what you need to do is make sure that the enemy uses a patrol point that you've created, as an example, to start from. So make sure remember the patrol points all link to each other, just like they did in our other project, the first project. They basically the patrol point tells the character what's the next one, the next one, the next one. Okay, that's how it works. You got it to work? Good for you. All right. And make sure also to complete the on action radius overlap for the patrol point, because this actually gets the next patrol point for the character. If you don't do this part, then the character won't go to the next patrol point. Okay, that's important to do. And then test your game. And the last thing is for ICE 9, guess what I'm getting you to do again, guys? Build. I want you to build it again. So you need to build out your game one more time. I want you to continue to build your game because I need you to test this stuff out and practice, because for your own game coming up, you're going to need to do builds for Rise and for Level Up and everything else. And if you're unpracticed doing this and figuring problems out, when it comes to that, you're going to be like, oh my God, I can't build. It won't build. It'll never build. You haven't built. Build regularly, guys, is what I'm saying, okay? Which is what we're doing here. Any questions for the stuff that you need to do, for you to do? I'm going to just put this up on DevOps, so if you need to start, if your project is bugged and you need to start from, refer to my project, you can, but please try and do it on your own. I think it's important for you to start with your own ICE 9. So back to DevOps. File, save all. And back to DevOps here, I'm just going to put up that stuff, view terminal. And we're going to say that added enemy class. There we go. Okay, so that's everything you need to start with. I'm going to stop recording this. I'm going to go around and help you guys because I want you guys to finish as much as possible your patrol point here today. Okay, try it today. Don't do it like later on. Why would you waste your time if we can do it now? Okay, I'll stop recording now.